Hey guys, and welcome to the 20th installment of Updated Builds, a series of videos where I go back over Warframes that I already made one or more videos about and I bring their builds up to date. Now today we're going to take a look at Nezha, who has received no changes with update 22.12 and has been requested quite a lot recently. So as always, I'm going to go through all the builds that I use on Nezha and I switch between them based on what I'm doing, and the two builds I have for you today are number 1, Discount Rhino, which focuses more on warding Halo than anything else, and number 2, Stabby, which focuses on Divine Spears. And let's start it off with the Discount Rhino setup, which sounds a lot worse than it actually is. Now, the aura I'm using here is Energy Siphon, but it's kind of up to you. You can use Energy Siphon for the extra energy, you can use Corrosive Projection to reduce the enemy armor, or you can even use Sprint Boost for more zoom. Then to absolutely roid up our warding Halo, I'm using Power Drift, Blind Rage, Transient Fortitude, Intensify, and Augur Secrets for over 300% power strength. This adds a ton of health to warding Halo, and it makes it comparable to something like Iron Skin. After that, I'm using Armored Agility for the extra armor, which also scales warding Halo, but it also adds a little bit of extra sprint speed, which is kind of nice on Nezha because he's pretty fast by default. I'm then using the Safeguard Augment, which is one thing that Nezha does have that Rhino doesn't, which allows you to cast Warding Halo on your allies at 50% efficiency. This is a really good augment for group play. And it doesn't matter what kind of content you like doing, you could be doing the Terralists, you could be doing sorties, or even just Hydron. It's just really nice to be able to protect your allies as well. Especially if you have some squishier frames in your party, so something like Banshee. And to top it all off, I am using Streamline and fully ranked Fleeting Expertise to balance out Blind Rage and give me good efficiency. However, since you're most likely not going to be spamming abilities all the time, you don't necessarily have to use both, so you can easily sub in something like Primed Continuity for extra duration. And you can choose to replace either one of these, it all depends on whether you want more duration or efficiency. Now the setup is very tanky, but you have to be careful about your warding Halo, because if it goes down, you only have 225 health and 225 shield, so as soon as it goes down you need to refresh it or you're just gonna die. Luckily though, the cast time on warding Halo is fairly short, so as long as you keep your eye out on the ability icons at the bottom right corner of the screen and you refresh it as soon as it goes down, you should have no issues. And there really isn't much else to say about this setup. It's kind of like an Iron Skin setup. You press a button and you don't die. That's pretty much it. You can use Firewalker to do a little bit of extra damage and boost your movement speed a little bit, though I would very much recommend you sub in Primed Continuity or at least the standard version of the continuity if you want to do that. Otherwise, the energy drain is going to be far too steep with the negative duration. You can also use Divine Spears to do damage, and they're going to do a ton with both the initial impalement and the follow-up slam. Just remember that you only have basic power range, so the area you're going to cover isn't going to be that large. Moving on to the Stabby setup, which focuses more on Divine Spears. I'm once again using Energy Siphon here because I like the extra energy, but you can once again swap it for Corrosive Projection, for armor reduction, sprint boost, for sprint speed, or kind of whatever you want. Auras are very subjective. Then to buff the damage of Divine Spears, I'm using Power Drift, Transient Fortitude, and Intensify for 200% power strength, and then for the additional 50 whenever I pick up an energy orb, I'm using Energy Conversion. This isn't amazing for a ton of builds because you do need to pick up an energy orb to get the bonus damage, but it works really well on a setup like this, which you're most likely going to use to do a lot of AoE damage, so you're going to be killing a lot of enemies, so there's a good chance they're gonna drop an energy orb. Next up, I'm using Natural Talent to reduce the cast time of Divine Spears because the base cast time on that ability is just way too long and it felt awful without it. Though if you're not bothered by the long base cast time, you can easily swap this for something like Augur Secrets for more strength, or Primed Continuity, which will give you longer crowd control. Then I am once again using Armored Agility for the same reason that I used it on the Discount Rhino setup. It adds a little bit of sprint speed and some armor, which will scale our warding Halo, Augur Reach and Stretch for more range so we can hit enemies that are farther away, and finally a fully ranked Fleeting Expertise for a lot of efficiency. This setup surprised me quite a bit because I'm generally not a big fan of press forward to win setups, but the way this plays is actually really nice. It feels super smooth in low level missions where your Divine Spears do more than enough damage to comfortably one-shot everything, and the added sprint speed makes this really good for speedrunning things such as Exterminate. And while your warding Halo is not as powerful, even if you do pick up an energy orb before you cast it as it is on the Discount Rhino setup, it is still pretty good. And the high efficiency of this setup means that if you have Energizing Dash from the Xenodic Focus School, you can pretty much sustain yourself as long as you pick up an energy orb here and there. It does start to slow down towards the end of the star chart, so level 35, 40-ish, but it's nothing too bad. It's not like it doesn't do any damage at that point. It will just sometimes take 2 casts before you kill enemies. and it covers a large enough area to where you can comfortably take it as a DPS frame to something like IO, which I'm running here, though it is a nightmare version of IO, so the enemies are level 35 to 40, or even Hydron to farm some XP or focus or whatever you want. It is not as effective as a Quaking Banshee or a Spore Sarim would be, but it will get the job done. And that's pretty much it for the builds. And now if you'd like to try one of these but you're not quite sure how to set up the forma yet, the best way to do it in my opinion is to simply put on all the mods, and if they don't fit, look for the one with the highest capacity drain that's shared between all your builds, forma for that, and do that until all the mods fit. And I thank you very much for watching as always guys. I hope you've enjoyed the video and it was helpful, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.